purpose of Jyotish Vedanga was to provide Vedic priests with means of computing the time for which the performances of sacrifices are prescribed, and primarily on the positions of full and new moon. The oldest Indian system of divination, and you can say astrology as well, it's called Muhurta divination system, based on so-called 27 lunar constellations or nakshatras, because Indians, for making the sidereal position of the sun and the moon, they divide the ecliptic cycle in 27, 28 divisions, so-called lunar constellations. And this tradition seems to have been subject to Babylonian influence. To regard the time when the moon conjoins with a particular nakshatras as propitious or impropitious for performing certain acts was an ancient custom in India. We can say that this really was a ancient Vedic science. Eventually, a separate science developed that used this notion of auspicious and auspicious time units in combination with omens and astrological yogas to establish the correct time for initiating various actions. Of course, weddings, religious rituals, yajnas, military actions, yatras, wars, and so on. And this, as I said, science is muhurta, that is corresponding to Hellenistic, so-called katharchic. This Greek terms means beginnings. Our nowadays contemporary astrologers, Western astrologers, they are using term electional astrology. It means that they are trying to find the proper time to elect a time for beginnings. Doesn't matter, weddings or other practices. In Indian texts on electional astrology, great importance is given to deciding the time for performing the religious sacraments, samskaras, and other ritual acts. And this aspect of muhurta strongly influenced many texts of domestic rituals, so-called dharma shastras and Grikya sutras, which are entirely or partially devoted to this kind of prediction. New step was assimilation of Hellenistic tradition, and most probably the planetary horoscopic astrology was introduced into India from Greece in conjunction with astronomy, as it was essential to possess some means of determining planetary positions in order to be able to cast horoscopes. The main Sanskrit text that has preserved for us what remains of Greco-Babylonian planetary astrology in India is so-called Yavana Jataka. The term itself, being in Sanskrit, means the horoscopy of the Greeks. And by the way, beside of this text, Yavana Jataka, there are maybe more around 20 Sanskrit texts or fragments of Sanskrit texts still having in title this component Yavana, means Greeks, coming from Greeks. And this text probably was composed around 217. And the Indianization and Sanskritization of Greek astronomy began, starting with integration of zodiacal signs. Ancient Indians never used zodiacal signs, evidently. And here we have already integration. And this is so-called Indian zodiacal melothesia, correspondences between zodiacal signs and parts of the body, quite late, 19th century illustration. But I would like to attract your attention to two zodiacal signs, how Indians adapted. Two zodiacal signs are adapted in this way, that we have lion, but still is called in Sanskrit Singha, that means lion, but represented as lion elephant, combined version. And this is Capricorn. Evidently, as you can see, is a crocodile, Makara. So two signs, zodiacal signs, were adopted in India. And this you can see even much better. This is elephant lion, and this is a Capricorn crocodile. in separate illustrations. So Spudijvaja, being himself an Indianized Greek, further Indianized the text, introducing the chapters on reincarnation, the list of minerals, plants, animals, Ayurvedic materia medica, and the sections on military astrology and other elements of Indian culture. So intention was that the original Greek system-based horoscopic system of astrology based on so-called rashis or zodiacal sign would fit the social and cultural expectations of Indians. Second period was Persian influence, and Persian influence starts approximately from 5th, 6th century. And most famous probably Indian astrologer Varahamihira, who lived in the 6th century AD. He reveals that period. He was a Maga Brahmana, and being a Maga Brahmana, he was subject not only to Greek influence, but to Persian Iranian influence as well. Just to remind that Magas were the sun-worshipping Magi priests who were originally inhabitants of Media, which came to be included into the Achaemenid Empire after Cyrus I conquest. But the translation of Persian and Arabic astro texts in some number into Sanskrit began quite late in the 16th, 17th centuries. And this is a good example. You see Mangal Graha or Mars in Indo-Persian text of 17th century. Certainly, especially Persians, they never represented in iconography any planet with a 4 or 6 hands. It's already Indian tradition. And a new school of astrology was created, new branch of natal horoscopic astrology called Tajika. The term Tajika, like Tajiks, we know this term, indicates that this is adaptation of Arabic Persian astrology, which was itself a combination of elements from Greek, Syriac, Sasanian, and Indian and sciences. And by the way, Varahamihira uses as many as 34 Sanskritized Greek words as technical astrological terms. And nowadays, for instance, even learned astrologer, they forgot that even the term Hora, used nowadays in India and in some Sanskrit texts, actually is taken from Greek language. That means our horoscope and so on. So totally we have principal branches of Indian astrology and divination. I included here Jataka, natal astrology, Muhurta, as I mentioned, oldest Indian branch, electional or cathartic. We have Prashna, horary or interrogational astrology, when chart is made on the time of question. Prashna means to ask. Tajika, I mentioned, Indian adaptation of Arabic Persian, and Nadi school in South India, that in North is known as a Brihu Samhita tradition. Finally, we have Hasta Samudrika Shastra palmistry, still very much popular in many areas of India. And Lakshana, prediction by omens. There are plenty of terms indicating various omens, Abhuta, Utpata, Nimitta, Shakuna, and so on. And this is also still significant branch of divination. This is illustration, contemporary illustration, how Indians imagine the tree, so-called Jyotisha Kalpatruma, magical tree of astral sciences. And if you can read the roots of this tree, you see various sources, tantric, Vedic, Puranic, but nothing is mentioned regarding the Greek assimilation, and nothing Tajika, nothing related to Persian adaptation, and so on. So it's, you can say, more nationalist representation of independent Vedic tree with 3 branches: Hora, astrology in the middle, and many leaves, schools, separate texts and schools. Samhita, divinational branch, and Siddhanta, more mathematical branch of astral sciences. So, but I'm not going to deal with all those branches, just to have general picture. A few words about the epistemology of astrology. because in India, formal cosmological structure, together with a rich mythological tradition, supports a living, meaningful cosmos. And this cosmos is above all relevant to the human world, and Indian epistemology ensured this relevance in the concept of likeness or resemblance. There is a Sanskrit term, sadrishya, similarity, resembling. And concept of sadrishya is fundamental to the operation of Indian astrological system and analogical imagination. There are three levels of being: microcosmos, ritual sphere, so-called adhyajna, and the microcosmos, adhyatman. And actually, likeness or resemblance is related to all these three levels of being. And the principle of likeness or resemblance was essential to the Indian cosmology, in which the astrological system developed, beginning with the cosmic man or Purusha of Rig Veda, an Upanishadic assertion that one who knows his microcosmic relationship to the universe attains salvation. And this homological thinking, by finding connection, bandhus or nidanas, or analogies between apparently unconnected things, serves as the basis of Vedic yajna. A quotation from Michel Foucault, who suggested that until the end of 16th century, in Europe, it was a resemblance that organized the play of symbols, made knowledge possible of things visible and invisible, and controlled the art of the presenting them. But in India, you see, not only a cosmos is represented as in the form of Purusha, human being, but we know the holy core, even the parts, separate parts of the core body, also are related to the particular lunar constellation. So we have this kind of principle of resemblance also in the animal sphere. Also, important point is there that various omens and astrological positions of stars and lunar constellations often are supposed to be not only of indicative, but also of causative value, not only symbolically representing, but also causing all kind of harms. Today in the film, we saw this aspect of tantric astrologer who was dealing with possession and impact of bhutas or maybe planets, like a particular demons. And the reason is that Sanskrit term graha has two meanings. It is on one hand planet, all planets are called grahas, but also demons. So to be under impact of particular graha can be understood in two ways. You may be under particular impact from demon or planet. And in such cases, a provision was subscribed for pacifying bad omens or planets by means of stronger magic religious rituals called shantis. A few words about the concept of time. A famous Indian psychologist who passed away recently, Sudhir Kakar, in his book, The Inner World, he said that the way in which a culture estimates and elaborates ideas of time and destiny provides insight into the psychological organization of its individual members. That fits exactly very much Indian society, because in India we have a concept of cyclical movements of heavenly body, and those movements produce cyclical patterns of influence on the terrestrial world and on the life of the person. And these celestial cycles create progression of auspicious Shubha and inauspicious Ashubha periods of time. So time in India is considered to be of not quantitative, but qualitative. Time has quality, not quantity, but quality, essentially. And theory of cycles is a basic feature of Hindu cosmology, with its accounts of cosmic cycles of creation and destruction, and with the fundamental place of the theory of rebirth, Punar Janma. Few words about free will. So essentially, we know that belief in fate is often discussed in the philosophical and psychological literature as fatalism, a tendency found to be related to negative consequences. Studies in this literature, however, have been limited by their conceptualization of fate beliefs in a manner that is confounded with other constructs which are known to have deleterious consequences, such as a sense of powerlessness, belief in an unjust world, and absence of trust in society. Compounding this issue, there has been a disproportionate reliance on samples taken from Western secular contexts. And I rely here on the term of Joseph Henry. He used this term WEIRD. Probably you heard this acronym. WEIRD means Western, educated, industrialized, religious, and democratic. And this is a quite recent book that is dealing with these aspects of WEIRD concepts. And also our paper of our project, the awareness of belief in free will, I mentioned during a film discussion. In this paper, we're trying to show how concept of free will is not working in India, China, and Mongolia. We were doing empirical research. Still, there is a prevailing perception that the commitment of Indians to so-called law of karma involves them in some sort of fatalism or resignation. But is the causal account inherent in the functioning of the karma principle deterministic in nature, or truly entails fatalism in Indian society? So the theory of karma and astrology share some important common characteristics that differentiate them from other idioms of causality. Astrology, because of its theoretical assumptions as well as its practical uses, constitutes an alternative ideology that is both antagonistic and complementary to the theory of karma. Essentially, from a theoretical viewpoint, the relationship between astrology and karma can be reduced to the assumption that the invisible adrishta fruits of acts carried out in previous lives become visible through the planetary configurations present at birth. You see a quotation of that famous astrologer Varhamihra. This science makes visible maturation of the fruits of good and bad acts accumulated in previous lives, just like a lamp makes objects visible in dark. So the theory of karma and astrology are in fact based on contrasting conceptual grounds. While in karma theory, the moral behavior of a person determines his or her subsequent life conditions, according to astrological theory, destiny and human acts are regulated by natural and cosmic principles, by power emanating from the stars and especially planets that are independent from human responsibility. A badly behaving person may be treated as a victim of planetary influence, someone that should be helped rather than condemned. The reconciliation of these two theories of human destiny occurs through an epistemological subordination of astrology to the theory of karma, because astral configurations can explain human destiny because they reveal the karmic residue, but in the last resort, the latter is the sole determining factor of human destiny. Astrology then appears as a heuristic tool, a set of technical rules that allow one to more precisely measure the effects of good and bad actions done in previous lives. In horoscope reading, as practiced by astrologers, these two theories turn out to be deeply compatible, as their differences make them complementary. Although it happens rarely, astrologers may refer during consultations to past lives, deeds, and karmic retribution. This happens when astrological theory does not seem to provide an exhaustive interpretative paradigm. Human responsibility is then evoked as an etiological supplement. Astrologers and their clients in West Bengal, where I was dealing, proceeded with my research, by referring to destiny, are commonly using not the word karma or karma pala, but bhagya, or Bengali bhagya, fate, fortune, luck, destiny, chance, good fortune, good luck. The word bhagya stems from the Sanskrit root bhaj, to share, to distribute, to divide, to allot. In contemporary Bengali language, bhagya has two close principal meanings: destiny and fortune. Sanskrit term, another important term that is used in most of astrological texts, is daiva, or Bengali daiba. It is not an absolute, or it's a mistake, it's not an absolute divine fate, but in opposite, it is kind of transcendental power, and is linked to particular personified or non-personified divine beings, deities, planets as well. So Daiva is used in almost all Sanskrit astrological texts. Karma, as I told already before, you can find this term very, very, very seldom. So during astrological consultations, karma and bhagya are often opposed to each other. The former designates human agency, effort, acts we do by will, and the later refers to predetermined destiny, fortune, the fate written in the star, and all the events that affect a person's existence independently of his or her will. So in many texts, Indian texts, astrological texts, and epic literature as well, we have opposition between two concepts: Daiva, as manifestation of divine will, transcendental will, and another term, Purushkara, or human actions. So, for instance, Yajnavalkya Smriti states, just like the movement of the chariot is not possible only by single will, destiny cannot succeed without human efforts. So human efforts are very much stressed. And at the same time, doctrine of karma is never emotionally satisfying for ordinary social and personal needs. Why? Answer is very simple. Because you are responsible for what you did. So it's not so much pleasant, you can say. And in that way, the theories of karma in explaining present condition by past conduct seems to exclude the possibility of any remedies. You cannot change karma. You just cannot use particular remedies that astrologers are prescribing. I like very much concept malleable fixity. Sincerely speaking, it's not my term. I borrowed from Alice Elliot and Laura Menin from this article because this concept fits very much, from my point of view, what are doing Indian astrologers. Distinctly from notions of randomness and chance, destiny evokes conceptions of human lives and futures that are at least partly fixed, be it by high political powers, cosmic forces, or transcendental entities. So you see quotation, as they says, such fixity is fundamentally malleable. Destiny is negotiated and nurtured, manipulated and resisted in complex ways, and unavoidably inflected by other powers ranging from cosmological elements, such as fortunes and luck, to intimate others, such as kin. Now, I would like to shift very briefly to concept of models of agency. The categories of action that are meaningful and important to an actor depend on the models of agency that are prevalent in the actor's social, cultural contexts. Models of agency are implicit frameworks of meanings and practices that define what counts as good action and what should be the source and consequences of good actions. According to disjoint model of agency that is pervasive in middle-class European American context, agency derives from within the individual. Normatively, good actions are those that stems from one's personal preferences, beliefs, and goals, and those that exert influence on the environment, according to Marcus and Kitayama. According to another conjoined model of agency, normatively good actions are those that are responsive to the situation, to social rules and expectations of other individuals. And namely, this conjoined model is often associated with Indian contexts. And we have not only these two, but many more empirical studies dealing with this kind of conjoined model reflecting Indian perspective. Another similar term, negotiable fate, I will not deal probably much with it. By Chaturvedi and others, it's very similar to the meaning of malleable fixity, but just will put this quotation, unlike fatalism, which holds that all events are predetermined by fate and are therefore unalterable, negotiable fate entertains the possibility of bringing about desired outcomes through agentic actions. It is important because now I am shifting to my empirical work to show how it is practically related. The central idea of negotiable fate is epitomized in the popular saying, when fate hands you a lemon, make lemonade. I heard from many astrologers in India this sentence, this expression. And the other study, also by Evelyn O, is also dealing with this concept of negotiable fate. I will not read, saving time. But it again fits very much the concept of malleable fixity. Okay, now I am jumping to my field work in Calcutta. That was done in December, January 19 and 20. So I had an interview with 15 professional astrologers, 13 male and 2 female. Age of astrologers from 36 to 82. Those who you saw that senior, this is 82. At that time, he was 82. Practices, astrological practices from 5-10 years up to 50, that senior astrologer 55. Also, I find this interesting data. I asked about education of astrologers and about their religious identity. As you see, education, almost everyone is having at least BA or BA and MA, mostly in sciences, not in humanities. That's a kind of, for me, that was a kind of paradox. And I would say well-educated astrologers, depending on different ages. But also I asked their religious identity, but I didn't ask about casta. Almost everyone somehow felt obliged to inform me that he or she are mostly, you see, Brahmins. Only one said, I am Hindu, all Hindu. One Roman Catholic, one lady astrologer, he said that he's Roman Catholic, but still Brahmin. So she changed her religion, but she cannot change her casta identity. Still, she identifies herself with casta. And one Brahman stressed that he's a secular, but still Brahman. But what we can say from this, they all 15 astrologers are well known in Calcutta. I said they are professional, having better or very good business. And actually, they represent a higher social casta strata of Indian society. So where did astrologers learn their art? 5 astrologers learn in families, from parents, grandfathers, uncles, and similar way. 8 of them studied at various astrological schools. In India, in Kolkata, in Varanasi. In Calcutta, there are many astrological colleges, schools. You can get degree, diplomas, and so on. 2 astrologers started learning themselves from books they could read, could get. One Indian astrologer told me, not among those 15, another one, he said that after graduation from university, he had no job. But he found a book of Raphael, maybe a famous astrologer, British astrologer of 19th century. He read that book and opened its center of Vedic astrology. That is how it works in India as well. And in 4 cases, we have home learning from private gurus, from private teachers, and so on. Schools and methods of interpretation. Most of astrologer are dealing with so-called natal astrology. Jataka, making your horoscope depending on time of your birth. Others emphasize horary or interrogational astrology, so-called prashna, when horoscope is made on the time of the query. Or electional, of course, for wedding, when to start a business, when to start building a house, and so on. 2 of them are active in palmistry, Hastarek Vidya, and one in Indian geomancy or favorable home design, Vastu Vidya. But almost all of them are actively involved in synastриc astrology, compatibility of charts, matching of partners. This is a principal income, principal business. Preferred sources and methods of interpretation starts from Parashari. This is, you can see, the Bible of Indian astrologers, Brihat Parashara Hora Shastra volume, translated from Sanskrit into almost all modern Indian languages. Varahimihirat, Brihat Jataka, and other texts. Modern astrologers, Raman and Krishnamurti, are very much popular. The same Tajika Nilakanti, who are dealing with Tajika. But 3 astrologers were interested in studying Western tradition. Even they represent so-called Vedic astrology, but they rely on works of Alan Leo, Dane Radyar, Mark Edmund Jones, and other, I would say, theosophy grounded astrological texts. So my questions: what predominant age of your clients? I provide also some. I will not read some comments from them. You see age from 18 to 66 and more. Seniors mostly coming to ask about children and their families. Parents are coming for kids. Mostly female clients coming for whole family issues and so on. So age is fully covered from 2. How important is for your consultations is religious affiliation of your clients? We discussed already after film this question. And yes, it is not important. Why? Religious affiliation of my client is important just for remedies purpose. Of course, for Muslims, you cannot prescribe Hindu puja. Or for Christian client, you cannot prescribe Muslim practice. 80% are Hindus, more Christians than Muslims, mostly Hindus. I like this expression. Even Marxists secretly practicing mantras are coming to me. Do not forget that I'm talking about Kolkata. West Bengal is still having a tremendous impact of all kind of leftist, communist, Maoist political groups and leaders. So Christians and Muslim around 5. Religious affiliation is not important because people believe in the same magical powers everywhere. Doesn't matter. You are Christian, you are Muslim, you are Hindus. Only one difference: what remedies can be prescribed depending on your identity. Please list the main questions in order of importance that the clients are coming to consult about. This is a kind of summary of principal questions. The first, number 1, marriage. So compatibility or matching of chart, as I said, is the main principal business in India. You can see that astrologers are working kind of a wedding, like a wedding marriage offices in India very often, because they provide this kind of consultation: health, job, family relations, education, finances. And other are less important. Even the timing of choices is not a principle according to astrologers. I asked it to mention 5 principal topics or issues. So marriage, health, and similar aspects. Some comments. Education means questions regarding the quality and subject of studies, question about happiness, how to be happy, people asking regarding the fertility, I be mother or not, but never asking about proper time for starting child. This is probably universal statement. Happy people are not coming. Only 10% as such. So according to astrologer, usually if somebody is approaching you as astrologer, always some troubles brings you there. And by the way, this last one comment, in my case, this is from Tantric astrologer who is dealing with spirits, bhuta, with demons. He says that in my case, many clients coming for spiritual problems to solve. Others asking to clean space and to make a good energy or to provide with some magical protections to hang on themselves. What are your clients expecting to learn from you? About present, about future, or both? You see that principally almost all astrologers confess that clients asking about present and future. Very few asking about their past, just some skeptical checking me. If you're asking about past, it means probably you are trying to see how effectively astrologer is working. Or clients first ask about the past, then present, and finally about the future. Do your clients ask about the possibility to change the future events of their life? This is related to destiny and free will topic. You see, yes, 14 out of 15 says that clients ask about possibility to change. That one is fatalist, as I called, oldest in that film, who said that you can change nothing. But others, 14, they stated that people are asking about how to can change your life, what you can do to change your future. By controlling your actions, you can control present and future. Around 90% of my clients ask about the possibility to change the future events of their life. This is a bit different attitude. Not you supposed to change your own future, but astrologer may provide you with some kind of tools that would change your future. So it reflects a bit more passive, you can say, attitude. Is the issue of free choice, binamuliye pachanda, I'm using Bengali term, consciously I'm avoiding a concept of free will because, as I mentioned during discussion today, this is a artificial, not traditional concept, svatantra ichcha. And yes, 11 says that during the consultations, the issue of free choice, what you can choose, is discussed. People already are having made decisions and need just to get confirmation from me. So I will speak a bit about this because it is important aspect. People are coming for legitimization of made decisions before. They're coming just to get confirmation that you are on the right, track in that sense, and so on. So remedies. What remedies, pratikara, upaya, and so on, you generally prescribe to your clients to improve her life condition? So again, you see principal remedy, gemstones, so-called Ratna Shastra, mantras, planetary and deity. Kavach. Kavach is protective amulet, also related to in Islamic tradition we have also Rudraksha. This is a Rudraksha prayer seed beds after particular ceremonies and religious practices. Puja, medicine, even rasayana, Indian alchemy is used. Meditation and less tantric ritual. These last two are interesting. Respect parents as a remedy, but only one astrologer mentioned this. And yoga exercise. Of course, prescription of yoga exercise as a remedy, I would treat as a real evidence of New Age impact in India, because in traditional society to do yoga exercise It's something strange. So, but what I wanted to say that principal remedies clearly reveals religious attitude. Almost all stotras, yantra, mandir, color therapy is something a bit different, but it is related to Vastu Vidya, kind of Indian Feng Shui exception. But all remedies are purely from religious kitchen. And some comments. Gems are only for health reason, but not for the fortune, not for bhagya, not for karma. Or people do not have time for mantras and chanting. Gems can minimize malefic effects of karma, but cannot change it. For Christians, I suggest and prescribe their own religious prayers. All kind of tantric remedies I prescribe, including Muslim mantras and inscription in Arabic, Saturn pujas, temple and tantric amulets, and so on. So, but this expression very important. People do not have time for mantras and chanting. If you remember in the film, this astrologer Arjun, he openly said that people confess that I have no time. Give me something that would work by itself. Gems is kind of example on your fingers and so on, because mantras you have to repeat. It takes your time. So this attitude also reflects some kind of passivity. You want to be active agent in changing your future, but you prefer to do it not by yourself, but by applying particular tools that you are getting from astrologer. So, but in general, therapeutic methods elaborated on the basis of family and local traditions are very different so-called remedies. Depends on astrologer's education background, which schools practice he is following. But principle also is important. Many astrologers stated that for clients, the more expensive the remedy, the more effective it's supposed to be. If you remember in the film, I asked if this is not too expensive for that family, this kind of prescription, some €100. And the reaction was surprising. If you wanted to change something in your life, nothing is expensive. You can manage. But essentially, principle behind it is that more you pay, more you are certain that it will work. One more important aspect is there. I have to mention also family relations, because in Indian society, it is in Indian astrological tradition, it is said that mother, father, spouse, children, grandparents, friends, servants, and others are part of your own chart, of your own horoscope. And actually, you can solve some problems, personal problems, by changing your actions, your behavior with your close relatives. It is called family relations, or parivara, closest family relations that makes impact on your changes. So, and we touch here upon a paradoxical key effect of the language of fate. It is by acknowledging the fixed and determined part of our fate, the one that does not depend on us, that people could assess their responsibility in managing the part that does depend on them. And in this way, the important function of astrological divination is the legitimization of the problematic decision, as I said already before. Divination is employed to discover the source of trouble in order to remove it, whether by sacrifice, counter sorcery, or accusation. Astrological counseling can help remove psychological uncertainties, validate uncomfortable decisions, and give people more confidence in their choices. Certainly, often the astrologer counsels the establishment of relationships with people whose strength counterbalance the client's weaknesses. Besides, the very act of cognizing and recognizing one's fate tracks changes it. The paradigmatic instance of this being the act of divining. Every prediction is necessarily also an intervention in the future. And in this way, the constant process of creation is maintained. And although the future has already been written, its shape is constantly being redrawn. So, in concluding, anthropological perspectives often overlook critical aspects of astrological advisory sessions, especially those aspects which deal with increasing person's awareness of their experiential situation and promoting the proactive psychological attitude. Early scholars of divinatory practices concluded that the clients must be gullible, superstitious, illogical, or even prelogical. It means culturally immature. Prediction or fortune telling, however, is only the astrologer's apparent activity. He is actually engaged in heuristically motivated hermeneutical procedure in which destiny is not only revealed but negotiated and corrected also. I suggest that a client seeks from the diviner the information upon which he can confidently act. From this point of view, divination is about agency, world making, and empowerment rather than social engineering. Nick Campion, in his A History of Western Astrology, stated that while it was prediction that aroused criticism of astrology from religious conservatives, forecasting the future was only a part of the astrological project. Astrology's most important function was to manage the present and change the future, a goal which could be achieved through magic, by which we mean the manipulation of the sympathies, rays, and correspondences. And I argue that astrological counseling constructs a new narrative of life, and dealing with malleable fixity affirms the active coping with obstacles and reintegration of the individuals within the society and cosmos. The implementation of will and choices is possible only within a necessary causal chain. And this causal chain does not certainly leave the agent at the disposal of unalterable fate. For divine or personified agencies of misfortune, or even impersonal forces like the planets, more exact diagnoses and more specific remedies are generally held to exist, so that these explanations tend to be more attractive because the clients see some real hope of dealing pragmatically with their suffering. A North Indian saying compares use of astrologers' forecast to that of weather forecast. You can't stop the rain, but you can carry an umbrella. And so many astrologers in India stating this. Such belief enables clients to maintain positive views of the self because they believe that even though they cannot overcome these constraints, they can work around them by managing their fate in different ways, including various religious practices. Thank you.